This video is on how to bulk close and delete BHOM events. Environment setup. What are the requirements to run this utility? You can use a Windows system, a Linux, or Mac system with Python version 3.8 or later. You will need the tenant URL and an API user and an API secret key for the tenant that you are planning to work in. The Python will also require you to install the requests module as well as the config parser module. If you plan to use the event cleanup INI file, I recommend using the INI file since this will simplify the command line to execute the utility. The utility has two execution modes, sim for simulate and go, which will actually close the events or delete the events you have selected. It is recommended to always run the simulate mode first to ensure that the utility acts on the events you are looking to close or delete. Let me stop the PowerPoint presentation and switch over to the demo. So let's start out with where do you get the utility from? BMC has posted a knowledge article on our communities site. You don't even necessarily have to be logged in to the communities, but if you go out and search for is it possible to bulk close or delete a large number of events and do a search, the first KA that comes up will be the one that contains the utility. I've already pulled it up in my environment, and basically it just briefly covers the zip file that's attached and what the utility is used for. Over on the right-hand side is where you'll find the BHOM event cleanup script, and you just download that file to your desktop and then explode it there. In my environment, I have the utility exploded here. And as I said, it comes with a BHOM event cleanup script user guide. The user guide is quite extensive. It walks you through setting up, configuring, and utilizing the utility. Brendan's done an excellent job and provided a great deal of detail in the document. So when you download it, first thing I would do is go through the document because it'll walk you through setting up your Python environment, getting everything configured, and then it walks through in great deal every one of the variables that are available and how to use them. He's also provided extensive examples within the documentation. I'm going to be using some specific ones for my environment, but you'll be able to leverage the documentation for your environment as well. When you explode the utility, wherever you decide to expand it to, it'll create an event cleanup folder as well as a log folder. And every time you run it, it will update the logs. And there is a debug option as well that just provides additional detail in the logs when you're trying to construct your initial query for include, exclude, whatever it is that you're trying to do. As I said earlier, the utility includes the event cleanup demo, the event cleanup INI file. And for this demo, I've just given you an example. Here are the two tenants that are available, the placeholders. And as I said, you could add additional ones and just reference 2, 3, 4, however many you decide to add. But it requires the URL for your BHOM environment, as well as providing a user access key and a user secret key. This is the environment that I'm going to be using. It's one of my test environments. And basically what I want to cover just briefly is user access keys. So I'm currently in the portal. In the portal is what we call the IMS, the Identity Management System. And when you click on users and access keys, all of these keys here are considered tenant level access keys. And when you create an access key at this level, you have to explicitly grant permissions to that access key. The other option that you have, which simplifies the process a great deal, is under My Profile, you're granted the ability to create two access keys. And I say you're granted the ability, assuming that whoever your tenant admin is has provided you the necessary permissions to create access keys, you will see that you can create up to two. The access keys that you create here automatically inherit the permissions of the user that's defined in the IMS. In this environment, as you can see, I've got quite a few closed events. I've got a fairly large amount of open events. This environment is not regularly maintained, but one of the things that I did yesterday, just so that I'd have some events that I could work on, because this is also a shared environment, and so I can clean some stuff up, but I can't clean it all up. So I did create a group of about 1,000 test events, and you'll see when I run my simulation and then go mode that we'll close these out in this environment. So what I did is I created just a quick text document so that I could walk through the various different scenarios that you're going to be going through as you build out your commands. In the event that you opt not to use the cleanup INI file, in your script, you will need to edit this import config parser out so that it doesn't try to import it and doesn't try to look for it, because it is part of the script. I do recommend that you use it, but in the event that you opt not to, just make sure that you comment that out by putting a pound in front of that. In my environment, as stated, because I'm running a OS X, so I've got a Linux variant, this is where my Python is located, and so that's what I added to the top of the script here so that I could execute the commands without having to provide file locations. When you're constructing your query, as you can see, this command here and this command here are the same command. The only difference is I'm not providing the arguments for the environment, the access key, and secret key. They're coming from my cleanup INI file, and I'm using tenant 2. I have 2 configured. The one that I'm currently in that I'll be using it against is my tenant 2. I'm running this particular command in the simulate mode, which you'll find here. The -I argument is what is it that I'm going after? And in this particular query, it's going after open and any events that have a severity of major and or critical. And I shouldn't say and or, it's or critical, but you have your and or options available to you. The operation that I'm going to be running is close. And then my recommendation is to create a simulate file that kind of matches the selection criteria that you're going after. So in this case, I'm going after severity, major, or critical, open, and I might even add, sim to tell me that this is run in simulate mode so that I know I've run the simulate. And then if I do decide that I'm going to run it in go mode, I would just copy the command. I would change the sim to go, and I might change the target file so I can see all the events that were cleaned up. Okay. As I said earlier, the sequence that you add the command line arguments is important. So, for example, if I wanted to enable debug mode, I can do, and I've done it in this one. You have to add it after you provide the environment arguments, secret key, access key. Otherwise, it'll give you an error when you attempt to run it. As I said yesterday, I did create about 1,000 test events. And so this query that I'm getting ready to run is I'm going to run it in simulate mode first. And it's going to create a CSV file for me, just so that you can see I do have version 3.12 of Python installed, both the request and config parser. The other thing that the utility does is it tells you what it's going to do, and then it asks for you to respond every time, regardless of whether you're running it in Go or simulate mode. It'll always ask you to confirm your selection. So the file that it created was called all events sim 032425. So when I click here, there's my file. And so this lists all the events that met my selection criteria for this particular run. Some of these events are already closed. Many of them are open. but it picked up all the events that met the selection criteria. In this case, because I went after a date, it picked up anything that met the date requirements of 324, beginning and end of day. This time I'm going to run the same command, except for this time I'm in go mode. Same criteria, and I've got an unrecognized argument in it. What did I do?
Tony, I don't think the SF argument is allowed in Go mode. That's SF is simulation file.
Let me take that off. Thanks, Brendan. I never did add it yesterday when I ran it in go mode, so let's see. And it's complete. So now if I go back and I check my events, they're all now gone because we've closed them out. Okay. If I run the same commands for deleting these events, oops, went to the wrong screen. And because I'm using the same file name, it's going to override the existing file. It's the same, it's the same events, but now it's showing me that they're all closed. Oops. And assuming this won't work either, so we'll take that off. And we're going to run it again. And this time we're going to be in go mode. And now it's deleted all of my events that were flagged for deletion in that date and time range. So if you saw the counts slightly went up between the initial run and the second run because I still had events that were in there that were already flagged for closed. So now it deleted more events that were already closed. So the utility is as granular as you want it to be when it comes to the inclusion or exclusion of the types of events that you're going after. So in this particular, so I just listed a few examples of content. If I run the event against all closed events that are in my environment, it'll create that simulation file for me. And it runs fairly quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that and run it. Let me just make sure that that one is in simulate mode. And so we got 26,000 events that it found. And if I go here and look, that file is about 4.7 meg in size. And there's a list of all the events that are currently in a closed state in my environment. And now what I could do is use this file as my example of, okay, what events am I interested in getting rid of? Instead of, doing a carte blanche, I can now delete all of these if I wanted to. All I have to do is change it to delete go, and it would delete them all. But it's a quick example of how you can get an output of all the events and take a look if you're looking for a specific target of events that you're going after or a particular type of event, like a particular class of an event. I believe down here I've got some SNMP traps. Let me just do a quick search. There we go. So If I was interested in just this class of events, then I can just create a query just for that class of event. And in my case, if I ran it in this environment, I'd see that I have 15,000 closed SNMP trap events. And it would be very quick for me to change that to a go mode and clean up all those closed events in my environment. So that kind of covers what I wanted to cover as far as the execution, show you the simulate mode and the go mode. Thank you for taking time to view this video. Please subscribe to our BMC Helix Operation Management YouTube channel, as well as our BMC community site.